Most people think the hardest part about VAWA is getting approved, but really the hardest part is actually waiting for a decision. In 2026, timelines for VAWA look very different from what people were told years ago. And this gap between expectation and reality is what is creating the most amounts of confusion and frustration for clients that I see. My name is Moumita Rahman, and I'm an immigration attorney with over 15 years of experience in immigration. My office routinely handles VAWA cases every single day. So I see in real time exactly how long it takes for a case to get approved. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the actual timelines that we are seeing in this year of 2026, including how long each step usually takes and pro tips along the way from somebody with years of experience. And as a bonus, I'll explain to you how long it takes to become a citizen after you have reached your approval, so you know exactly what your entire journey will look like. Now, let's start with the part that most people underestimate the most, preparing your case. Because the truth is that your VAWA timeline does not begin the day that you mail your application, but rather it starts well before that. And this includes things that USCIS never even sees, such as preparing your affidavit, gathering your documents, and preparing all the forms that go into your VAWA filing. Some people are able to do this quickly, and for others, it may take several months. And the range can depend on quite a few things, such as how quickly can you get records to prove your good moral character, marriage certificates, divorce documentation, police clearances, and certificates of disposition, or any other court dispositions if you have ever had encounters with law enforcement. It also depends on how long it takes to properly write your affidavit and gather corroborating evidence to prove your case. And your affidavit is admittedly the most important part of your case, especially now that we have new guidance from USCIS spelling out exactly what they are looking for to prove that you have suffered extreme cultural battery. Great care must be taken to describe the events that you have gone through. And I want to be clear about this. Rushing through this stage can backfire in your case. I've seen people file quickly because they're scared and they just want to get receipts, but this can end up with denials. Or you could end up with further delays down the road because you get sent a request for evidence to help prove why you did actually suffer what you did and how you qualify for VAWA. So even though slowing down the process to file by months can feel very, very stressful, this is actually the time when slowing down a little bit can save you even more down the road. Another thing that will affect your timeline is whether you are eligible to file multiple things together. Some people are able to file their I-360, I-485, work permit application, and travel documents all together at the same time. This is usually because the abusive relative is a U.S. citizen and the client is considered an immediate relative, meaning there is no wait time for a visa. But if your abusive spouse is a green card holder, then you will be subject to the priority date that is established for you through the visa bulletin. And in most cases, you may not be allowed to file your green card application, your work permit application, or your travel document at the time that you file your I-360 VAWA application. You may have to wait months and sometimes even years to be able to file these, depending on what is published according to the visa bulletin. But this does not mean that you cannot file for VAWA because your I-360 filing is not tied to the visa bulletin. You just have to wait before you can file the I-485 and the other related applications. Now, once your case is properly filed, that is when the real waiting period with USCIS begins. And this is where the other very long period of wait starts. So let's walk through the VAWA timeline step by step in the exact order that cases are being processed right now. This way you know what to expect. The very first thing that people wait for after filing is the receipt notice. The receipt notice is the proof that you have filed your case, but this is where your expectation at this moment needs to be reset. Underneath normal circumstances, receipts would normally not take more than 30 to 60 days to receive. But right now, we are seeing wait times of anywhere from 4 to 6 months, sometimes even longer for receipts to be received. And sometimes the wait time becomes longer around the holidays or around other events. And I'm letting you know this very clearly right now because people start to panic at the 2 to 3 month waiting period, thinking that a case has been lost, rejected, or denied. But this is actually not what is happening. VAWA cases are humanitarian cases, and underneath this administration, they are not being prioritized as much. Therefore, wait times have increased a great deal, even for simple simple things such as receiving receipts. So a long wait time for a receipt does not mean that this is a bad sign in your case. It simply means that USCIS may not have its act together in getting you the receipts issued. But once they are issued, you will receive a separate receipt notice for every single application that you file, and each application will receive its own unique case number. The date that is on the receipt that says the date that your case was received is your actual priority date, and that is locked in no matter what day the receipt is actually issued to you. Therefore, if your case is received by USCIS on December 1st, even if you receive your receipt on April 30th of the next year, your receipt notice that says the notice date is still going to say December 1st. And this is the date that you will be locked in line. Next, after your receipt notices are issued, will be your biometrics. Biometrics are where USCIS takes your fingerprint and your photo. Sometimes they may even reuse old biometrics they already have on file. For most VAWA applicants, appointment notices are usually issued 3 to 6 months after filing, simply because everything is downstream of the receipt notice stage. You could typically expect to receive your biometrics appointment letter usually 3 to 6 weeks after you get your receipts. Some people will get an actual appointment notice, and others will get a receipt notice that says that they are going to reuse old biometrics. Both are normal and nothing is out of the norm, but make sure that you do not miss your biometrics appointment, because missing it can delay the issuance of certain applications such as your work permit or your travel authorization. Next, USCIS will hopefully issue to you what is called a prima facie determination. This is a preliminary review where USCIS has checked to see whether certain factors exist in your case, and they decide preliminarily whether your case meets the VAWA requirements. These basic requirements include such things as having a qualifying relationship, having a shared residence with your spouse, having good moral character, and having some evidence of abuse. This can come several months after filing, but the timing will of course vary. I typically see that prima facie determinations are usually issued about 180 days to 9 months after your case is received by USCIS. Now, getting a prima facie determination is a very good sign, but I want to be clear that this does not mean that you will be approved. It simply means that your case has passed an initial screening, which of course is a good sign. In some states, such as Florida, having a prima facie determination can help you get certain benefits, such as a driver's license or other public benefits. But from an immigration standpoint, the prima facie determination really doesn't mean much more than the fact that your case has passed an initial screening and is currently pending. Next, after the prima facie determination is the thing that most people are waiting anxiously for, which is the work permit. Typically seeing work permits take anywhere from 6 to 10 months to be issued after your case is received by USCIS. But of course, this is going to depend on backlog that USCIS is experiencing, and this timeline tends to go up and down throughout the year. Now, an important update here. The work permit validity lengths are changing. Some people used to receive a validity period of 5 years, but now that has been shortened by immigration. Always make sure that you check the expiration date on your card. But what matters most is that once you have your work authorization card, you can immediately start working legally and also qualify for other things such as a social security number and a driver's license in most states. But of course, now the next question is going to be, when do I receive my social security card? Typically, the social security card will come about 2 to 3 months after the work permit is issued. But here is where I need to set your expectation again, because we are seeing various delays and also inconsistencies of cards being issued automatically. If several months go by after you have received your work authorization card and you have not yet received your social security card, then you may want to follow up with the Social Security Administration to see what has happened to your request. Now, the next thing that most people will also want to know about is the advance parole or travel permission request. In many cases, USCIS may decide to issue you a combo card of your advance parole and your work authorization, which would typically mean that your advance parole would come at the same time as your work authorization. But here is where I also need to set your expectations clearly. In the past year, we have seen USCIS separate these applications and issue a separate approval of the advance parole, which is typically taking about 1 year for USCIS to process if they decide to not issue you a combo card. There is no rhyme or reason and no reliable pattern that you can use to understand or predict what you will be issued. And I also want to remind everybody that traveling on advanced parole always carries with it a risk, and it is not a guarantee that you will be allowed back into the United States. So for those of you who are waiting for advanced parole, I caution you and I urge you to think twice about travel, especially during these times. Make sure you discuss travel plans with your lawyer clearly, honestly, and with as much time as possible. Now, once you get your EAD card or you get your travel document, this is when the longest wait time begins and the period where you might experience the longest amount of silence from USCIS, but this is also where you might receive a request for evidence. Now, typically, I see requests for evidence be issued much later in a case than you might think. Normally, if USCIS says that the processing time for a cert application is 36 months or 48 months, then I would say that we would see a request for evidence be issued around this time as well. Now, receiving a request for evidence is not a death knell for a case. And in fact, you have 87 days to respond to a request for evidence if one is issued. And here is where you must take time to put together a well-crafted and strongly corroborated response, because rushing through a response to a request for evidence can destroy your case and cause you to get denied. Remember, getting an RFE does not mean that your case is weak. Sometimes we see RFEs being issued close to the processing timeline that USCIS has to make a decision simply because USCIS officers do not have time to make a decision. Sometimes we have seen requests for evidence get issued multiple times on a case. And I have seen RFEs be issued on extremely strong cases where there is physical abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. I make another video talking about how unpredictable VAWA RFEs can be. I'll include a link to that in the description below. Now, let's zoom out for a minute. During this USCIS processing phase, it is normal to experience long periods of silence, delays that feel uncomfortable, and periods where nothing seems to move. This does not mean that there is a problem with your case. So it is important for you to stay strong and be patient during this timeline of your case. Now, once this period finishes, this is when USCIS moves into its decision phase. And what happens after your VAWA is approved is very different from what people expect. Stay tuned because I'm going to give you the timeline for becoming a US citizen after your VAWA is approved, and you will want to miss it. Okay, the decision phase or the approval phase is what people are waiting for, but this is also the stage that creates the most confusion. This is because most people assume that once their I-360 VAWA application form is approved, that everything is going to move quickly right after that. But that is not how things work. So let's break this down carefully. Right now, I am seeing I-360 VAWA approvals take anywhere from 3.5 to 4 years to receive. And again, this is from the time that you submit your application. Sometimes it could be a little bit shorter, but on average, as of this date, we are seeing these cases take approximately 4 years to process. Now, this processing time is literally just the time it takes for your case to be reaching the officer's desk for a decision. It does not mean that your case is forgotten about or that it's getting denied. It simply means that it has not yet been assigned to an officer who can read and take a look at your file. But once your I-360 is approved, USCIS has officially accepted that you were in a good faith marriage, that you suffered either extreme cruelty or battery or both, that you had shared residence, and that you met your good moral character requirements. So part of this case is done, but this is where people get surprised. VAWA approval does not automatically mean that you get your green card. The I-360 application and your I-485 green card application are actually processed separately at totally different locations by totally different officers, even if they are filed together. So once your I-360 application is approved, USCIS will then transfer your case to your local USCIS office for adjudication of your I-485. And this transfer alone can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months for USCIS to complete. And then after that, you may not see any movement for a long time, and you will actually not end up knowing when your case actually makes it to your local office in the first place. But once your local office has your case, they will then take certain action, including deciding whether or not to issue you a request for evidence based upon your I-485, or to issue you an interview request for your case, or to simply make a decision and waive your interview. All of these outcomes are normal, and all of these outcomes can take anywhere from an additional 6 months to more than a year to receive news about. On average, we see green card movement movement on an I-485 post I-360 approval take approximately 6 months to occur, but it is also normal for us to not see any movement on the I-485 for a period of 12 to 18 months. In some high volume locations, such as in New York State or in California, these actions can take months to occur. And if you are scheduled for an interview, it does not mean that anything is wrong. It may be due to certain factors you have in your case or simply due to local office practices. But rest assured, once your green card interview is approved, then getting the actual green card takes about 30 days. So when people ask me how long do green cards through VAWA take to get issued, the real answer is that it could take many, many years, and you cannot rely on just your I-360 approval alone. And this is the realistic expectation right now. Coming up, I'm about to explain the timeline for becoming a US citizen after getting your VAWA approved. But before I do, I want to let you know that we are accepting new clients. My name is Moumita Rahman, and for the past 15 years, we have helped thousands of clients successfully file for VAWA across the United States. This means that I do have a lot of experience in knowing what USCIS is looking for, in knowing how to explain what you have gone through, and in preparing your case and getting you approved. So if you would like my help on your VAWA case, give us a call at 212-248-7907. We are based in New York, but we work with clients in all 50 states. Now, once you receive your green card, the next question that I always get is, when can I become a citizen? The first thing to understand is that your citizenship clock does not start when you get your VAWA approved, but rather it starts when you get granted your green card. It starts from the resident since date printed on your actual green card. This is the date that will control the next step of your journey. Now, for people who have received their green cards through VAWA, there are two possible timelines that may apply. Some people will fall underneath the 5-year rule, and this is true for those of you who have received VAWA approvals by being the parent of an abusive US citizen. But if you received your green card through being the spouse of an abusive US citizen, then you get to apply for citizenship after 3 years. And you need to know that you do not need to remain married or be living in marital harmony with your spouse in order to qualify for the 3-year rule for citizenship. Now, USCIS also allows for early filing, so you can actually file 90 days in advance of your clock finishing its time. So filing early, especially during these times when scrutiny has increased across the board for citizenship cases, can be a big benefit to you. And once you file your N-400, that process can also have its own timeline. Make sure you check out my videos explaining the N-400 timelines. And you will become a US citizen once you have officially taken the oath after you get your interview approved. For most people, this process can take roughly 8 months to up to a year. So when you zoom out and look at the full picture, we are looking at approximately 8 years to becoming a US citizen after your VAWA is approved. It may not feel like it's quick, but I promise you the time will pass quickly once you have your green card. Now that you understand how long VAWA cases can take, I hope you will rest assured and have less anxiety about the future. It's important that you take time to prepare your case properly, and I have seen many cases prepared poorly by other attorneys because they miss explaining things the right way or they make other critical mistakes. So in my other video, the top 16 mistakes that can destroy your case, I show you the exact errors that I see in VAWA applications real time. This is important for you to watch even if you have already filed your case. I'll include a link to that video here, and I'll see you there.